And our first stud taking the top spot is Jai Simkin. And we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago and his centre bounce attendances. He's currently top 5 in the league. Hello everybody and welcome to the Footy Gameday Squad show. I'll be your host Tom and I'm accompanied today by Kerm. Mate, how are you going today, brother? What's going on?
Good, mate. I'm so good. Two things. No Cal today. We're missing our leader, Callum. And the other thing, the Suns jersey, you might be thinking, Kerm, you're an idiot. The Suns lost. Why are you wearing your polo, your shirt? I was at the game with actually Cal at the Gabba. So we witnessed the Suns almost get over the edge against the Lions. And to push them to the edge, I thought I'd wear the polo just in commemoration of our season's essentially over now. But Cal and I got to witness that. So, yeah, after pretty much a red-eye flight last night, we're back up for the pod today and I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, mate. Well, how unfortunate. What an effort by the Suns. They've just been sticking in there with some of the teams that are the best in the comp all year. Shame they couldn't pull out the win in that one at the Gabba. That would have been huge. But what a game, irrespective. And what a game to be at with the boys as well. I'm sure you had a great time, hey?
So many good games this round. I'm so keen to get stuck into the preview.
Yeah, for sure. And Callum as well does send, review of the round of 19. So Callum sends his apologies. He's unable to make it to today's show. But we're going to be conducting a deep dive into the round of 19, looking at players' performance from a fantasy perspective and run through other fantasy breakdowns to help you get game day ready. And with that being said, let's get into our first segment where we go through the studs, the duds, and our Dynasty Watch players for the round. And I'm going to take it away with a stud. And the biggest of all the studs this week on the top of the mountain, as you can see there, is Jack Steele.
So good.
He came back with a bang this week. It was against the West Coast Eagles, so it was always going to be a game to watch for Jack Steele. But he had 174 Game Day Squad fantasy points, taking out the highest output for the round. His two most notable stats were his 40 disposals and 10 marks, a much-needed win for the Saints, who are now tied 8th on the AFL ladder. But let me throw it over to you. Give me your first Dynasty Watch player for this round.
Yeah, so the guy I'm going to talk about first is West Coast Eagles mid-season draft pick, Cully. And he's been playing the last couple of weeks. He played last week and was quietly very good himself. But this last round, in round 19, he had 19 disposals, 7 tackles, and a goal to go with it for 104 GDS fantasy points. He's going to be one to watch going forward because I think he's going to be a very good fantasy option in the next couple of years. So hold and stash him away for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a performance. Cracking the triple digits. You love to see that from the young players because when they can get that done early, that's looking really good for the years to come.
Yeah.
Of course, we're a Dynasty platform. And if you don't know why we're here because of Gameday Squad, Australia's first and only fantasy game utilising blockchain technology. If you're not sure what we're about here at Gameday Squad, it's very easy. Go down below, click the link in the description. It has everything there for you, explaining what our fantasy game is and how we work. But let me get into our first dud of the round because we're going to throw it one by one. And our first dud taking the top spot is Jai Simkin. And we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago and his centre bounce attendances. He's currently top 5 in the league, which is a really good sign normally for fantasy players, but not so good in this game. He only had 62 Game Day Squad fantasy points, which is about half of his normal average for the season. So a really bad game, just was not involved against Hawthorn. And, the Kangaroos put up a good effort in this one. Hawthorn were just the classier team in the end. They ended up running away with it. But Jack Gunston, what a player. Had 5 goals, 4 behinds. Yeah. It's a bit hard to win the game when you have a player contributing that much to the scoreboard. So, yeah, Jai Simkin is our dud of this round. But let me get into our second stud. And in life, Kerm, there's death, there's taxes, and there's Rory Laird having a monster game.
He's just been so good all season long. And you actually told me this stat a couple of weeks ago and I didn't believe. I was like, oh my God. But he hasn't gone under 100 GDS fantasy points in a single game this season so far. So that just goes to show the consistency and class of Rory Laird so far in season 2022.
Tell me about it. Bloody tell me about it. Mate, it just seems the norm right now for him to have a ballistic outing every single time he touches the field. He has the second highest fantasy output for the week at 171 Game Day Squad fantasy points. His two most notable stats in this one were 28 kicks, which is just ginormous, and a goal. It wasn't enough to get in the win column in the end, But I'll tell you what, their leader of the team is doing everything he can to keep the Crows in a game.
It's not to his detriment at all. It's more the Crows. So Roy Laird's doing all he can.
Yeah, and mate, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I predicted Rory Laird was going to be AFL Fantasy's MVP, and I think he's living up to that statement right now. I'm so excited, though, with a couple of weeks to go. Can he hang on? Brayshaw's in the mix. Smith has come back. If he has some monster outings, he could be in the mix. It's going to be spicy towards the end of the season. But let me throw it over to you, for your second Dynasty Watch player. Who have you got this week?
Yeah, I'm going to throw it to Marcus Windhager. Now, we've spoken about the Nick Dacos's, the John Newcombs, Josh Ward the last couple of weeks.
Always.
Sick of talking about them, sick of hearing about them. We all know how class they are, so I've thrown in some other options. Marcus Windhager out of the Saints, he had a really, really good game. 23 disposals, 3 tackles for 101 fantasy GDS points. So that'll take you a long way as a rookie. Those cracking the 3 digits, as you said in the Cully section before. Anytime you can do that for a rookie is a really big day. So here's another one to watch for the Saints, is he might be able to crack a really regular role for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, the Saints, they had a great fantasy outing across the board. I think in that game they had the top 5 fantasy
Crouch
outputs
as well,
against West Coast.
Good.
They just dominated, didn't they? They looked really good, but they needed that, especially towards the tail end of the season here. As I mentioned, tied 8th. They need to be in good form, and they need to start getting some wins in that column to make sure that they can crack September footy and play in some finals games. But our second dud nomination for this round, Kerm, this is going to hurt a little bit, mate. I am extremely sorry. It is Darcy Cameron from the Magpies, who finished this round with 43 Gameday Squad fantasy points. This was a game where I thought he could really dominate. It was going to be a fast-flowing game against Collingwood. But I'll tell you what, Collingwood just find a way when it's a nail-biter to win.
What a game.
I think they have won 7 games this season now with a single-digit margin, which is just absurd. They have ice in their veins. They are clutch, and especially Jamie Elliott. That guy is clutch.
The mark itself almost got sandwiched, clanged, absolutely almost got collected. And then to have the balls and the guts to nail it after the siren as well. As the siren was going, he kicked it. Absolutely unreal, Jamie Elliott. Take it down.
Yeah, for sure. And just having the no to not play on and open up the angle and go around the corner. He knew that game was about to finish. He could sense the siren was about to come. So he knew it had to be a drop punt from that position. And my goodness, did he execute that kick to perfection.
So good.
But anyway, Darcy Cameron didn't have a good game in this one. I had high expectations like yourself. We'll get into that in our preview show for our Lock of the Round segment. Just very unfortunate for him. But let's not keep putting Darcy Cameron down. Let's move on. We'll go to our third nomination for start of the round, and that is a player that we brought up a couple weeks ago. This is a young dynasty stud. It is Hayden Young, which is ironic.
So, yeah, it is. I'm so high on this guy going into next year. I think he could be D2, D3 area type operator, so I'm so high on Hayden Young.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned before, Brad Crouch, he's probably stiff not to get the third place finish for this round. He had a monster outing this week as well. But Hayden Young definitely deserves it. He's a dynasty prospect, putting up elite numbers in the tail end of this season. So I'll tell you what, keep your eye on him because me and Kerm have our eyes locked on this kid, looking not only at this year, but for the next couple years to come and the fantasy output that he can have. But he finished this round with 156 Gameday Squad fantasy points. His 2 most notable stats were his 23 kicks and 14 marks, which is absurd. That is very high. That is well above the league average in a game. So take a bow, Hayden Young. Fantastic outing from you. But Kerm, I'm going to throw it over to you for your third Dynasty Watch player, wrapping it all up. Who was
Another Adelaide player. It's Jake Seligo, who's been quietly performing under the radar a little bit. He had 20 disposals, 4 tackles, and 1 goal in the past round for 86 fantasy GDS points. He's another one to watch. As I said, I don't really want to be talking about the Nick Dacos's and John Newcombs of the world week in, week out, because we could just plug them in every week. But Jake Seligo is another option to keep an eye on going into next year and see if he can crack into that midfield or keep playing that wing role that he has been.
Yeah, you said it too right, mate. It is so hard not to talk about those players, the Dacos's, because they're just playing so good. But you got to give flowers to the other players when they deserve it, and he definitely did this week. He had a great outing. And we'll wrap it up with our dud section here. Luke Jackson, as we mentioned, he's splitting time with Max Gawn in the middle as the ruckman for the team. He only had 10 hitouts this week, which is really low compared to Gawn's nearly 40, which, what a game from Max Gawn.
He's so good.
He had a cracker this week.
Yeah. And I think this is indicative of what Luke Jackson is going to be feeling going into the off-season here, because I personally can't see him being on the Melbourne Demons playlist going into next season. I think he will be at Freo. And that opens up things for Max Gawn. I think he's going to return to being that elite primo option again and being that consistent number one ruck in the game. But for Luke Jackson, Sean Darcy, that dynamic, it doesn't really improve either of them. In fact, it probably lessens both their value quite a lot, because I don't know how that dynamic's going to work, but we'll see how it plays out. Good signs for Max Gawn, not so much for the other two.
Yeah, absolutely. That is well said. And, Luke Jackson this week, 56 Gameday Squad fantasy points. If you're a fantasy manager right now and you have someone like Luke Jackson in your team, you really need to be looking at trying to replace him, just because each week you know that his role is so limited because of how good Max Gawn is. He's considered the best ruckman in the league, heavily by the players. He proved it last year in September when he was playing some finals footy. He was unreal. So yeah, you need to be looking elsewhere for some production, and hopefully you have some players that you can punch in there instead. But let's get into our next part here, which is a new segment we brought up a couple of weeks ago, which I really like, because we can talk about some players that maybe we don't get to talk about in our studs and duds and Dynasty Watch. Some players who might be flying under the radar a little bit. It's going to be our player radar. So Kerm, this week, I know you've nominated some players. Did you want to get into someone who you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so I've got two for this round, and one is for good reasons, one's not for some other good reasons. But the guy that I'm really keen on, and someone I want in a platinum or diamond rarity card, would be Connor Rozee, and he's quickly becoming a lot of people's favourite player outside of their own club, because he is so fun to watch. He's sort of what Toby Green was, but without being the flog. It's impacting the scoreboard, getting disposals, just an exciting player to watch, and I'd love to build my forward line around him. And last week he had another good outing in the midfield, 21 disposals, 7 marks, 7 tackles, and only 1 free kick against. And that free kick against column is something that he's really improved on this season. He's only averaged about 1 free kick against per game so far this season. So that is really good from Connor Rozee, especially playing more midfield time. And I would absolutely adore a diamond Connor Rozee, as I'm sure a lot of people would. But onto the other side, we spoke about him a little bit briefly in the last segment, but Darcy Cameron, he was really one of my favourite forward options in the game. And we know that forward options in GDS are few and far between at the moment. It seems to be the position that most players and most coaches have most trouble with. And Darcy Cameron was the linchpin for a lot of people's forward lines. And 2 words, Mason Cox, had 24 hitouts to Darcy Cameron's 10. Darcy Cameron played a lot of deep forward role for the Collingwood Magpies against Essendon Bombers, and that just hit his fantasy impact massively. So hopefully that switches back. I'm not sure it will. We're seeing Brodie Grundy come back looking really healthy as well, so we'll see how that impacts Darcy Cameron going forward. There's a lot of news about where Brodie Grundy is going to be playing next season as well. He seems to be on the outer. The ruck landscape is up in flames right now. But
tell me
as of last week, it's going to be hard to start Darcy Cameron going forward, because those 10 hit-outs, he only had 4 disposals. He even kicked a goal, but that wasn't good enough to get his score to a productive level. So Darcy Cameron, I've got really big worries about going forward.
Yeah, and look, Darcy Cameron's reminded me a lot of Isaac Heaney. The less time both of those people spend in the middle, the less valuable they are becoming at their position. Isaac Heaney, and we talk about the key forwards in the league and how little their fantasy output can be sometimes, because they are forced to sit so deep. They're not coming high up the ground, getting high usage, helping the ball swing in transition. They're forced to stay back. They need to compete one-on-one every time it comes long down the line. And as you said, it just really hurts their fantasy production. So those are 2 players there you have to watch very closely and see how much time they're going to get in the midfield to then warrant you starting those players and for them to be cornerstone players in your teams. But let me get into my Dynasty Watch players for this round. And the first one I want to start it off with is with a Swanee. It's Robbie Fox.
Hey.
And I mentioned how he was going to be my emergency sub in case Aaron Hall was out this week. Aaron Hall had a killer game as well.
So good.
He played really good. But Robbie Fox, since getting his first gig in round 12, He has played now 6 games total and has scored triple digits in 4 out of these 6.
Wow.
He's doing this with great involvement in transition. He's helping the ball swing out of the Swans defense. This is great to see as a fantasy coach because you want high usage from your starting backs, and he's begging for a starting role on my team. And I'm thinking he's starting to do enough to earn it. The numbers are there. It's just in my face. He's really just rubbing it in, being like, what are you doing sitting me on the bench? Plus, I'm a Swans fan, so it's going to be hard to not try to get him in the team next week. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's a player that I'm watching really closely because he hasn't played a whole lot of games. There isn't a high output there to compare the numbers on. But for the games he has played, the numbers don't lie, man.
No, as you've said, he's been so consistent, and that's a really good option because you want those point of difference players. Like, not many people are going to start playing Robbie Fox, so the more point of difference players you can trust, the better going into the pointy end of the season.
Absolutely. And let me give you another defender people are maybe sleeping on. And this is a defender that we've shut down just because of their role. And I'm going to say it, this guy might be the best one-on-one defender in the league. And this is the reason why that his fantasy output hasn't been so good, because he needs to be locking people down. Who am I talking about? That's Elira Lee from the Port Power.
There you go.
And I don't know if you saw, but Elira Lee had his best game of the season last round. He had 18 kicks and 11 marks to go with it, getting him to some respectable numbers, and numbers that you're looking at and being like, I might be able to start playing Elira Lee in my backline. The thing is, though, I want to see moving forward, is this kicks and these marks that he's taking, is this going to be consistent? Because there have been games where he struggles to crack double digits in the kicking column. This game he nearly got to 20. So I'm just keeping an eye on him. I think it's an interesting role moving forward and how the Port Power are going to play him. Will they continue to keep his involvement high in swinging the ball and kicking it back to him? Or is he going to go back to that one-on-one lockdown role and have very little impact? So look out for Elira Lee moving forward.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. I definitely wouldn't recommend starting Elira Lee just yet because
not yet.
He seems to be like Stephen May's another one. Stephen May can come out and score 100 fantasy GDS points, taking kick-ins, intercept marking, stuff like that. So it might just be a flash in the pan. Definitely don't go starting Elira Lee just yet. But as Tom said, keep a little side of your eye on him.
Yeah, don't hit the panic button yet. Don't hit the buy button. Yeah, you definitely just need to watch how it turns out. Yeah. And we're going to have some great opportunity to do so over the next couple of weeks, heading into finals footy. Port aren't really in the running, so I feel like they have nothing to lose right now with playing their players. They're just going to do the best that they can at the tail end of the season and see where that takes them. But my third player here I wanted to talk about is Max Gawn, and it's because he is back. And although he's splitting time with Luke Jackson at that ruck position, Luke Jackson only had 10 hitouts in the last game, as I mentioned. Max Gawn, 40. So I did get that right before when I said he nearly had 40. 40 hitouts is absurd. And he went up against one of the best in the competition right now in Tim English and absolutely dominated him.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, he really showed who was the best ruckman in the league. There's been a lot of talk whether Tim English is creeping into that spot. Mm-hmm. Is he creeping into that role? And in terms of fantasy, you have an argument, but if you look at it in real life and that matchup,
that was a humbler.
There's no argument there.
That was a humbler for Tim English. He put him back in his place a little bit. I think he took it personally.
Yeah, he definitely took it personally. You could tell. So yeah, look at Max Gawn moving forward. If this is the production that we're going to expect to see from him, 133 points isn't a pretty bad way to go about it. And as you mentioned, the ruck position this year has my head scratching in a lot of weeks. Yeah. Some weeks I feel like I have a lock. Other weeks I'm like, this guy is just cuttable. I don't even want to play him anymore. So yeah, and I'm going to finish it off here with my last one, Isaac Cumming. And I spoke about Harry Himmelberg for the GWS Giants and how good he has been as a defender and the numbers that he's racking up, because he's just putting up elite numbers at that position. He's leading nearly every game in fantasy output for the GWS Giants over the past couple of weeks. But do you know whose game he's hurting?
Cumming.
It's Isaac Cumming. Yeah. Isaac Cumming in recent form is having his worst fantasy production of the season. And I know I say that a lot, but the numbers do not lie. In the past 4 games, he has struggled to crack triple-digit scoring in 2 of them. And when I mean struggle, I really mean struggle. That he wasn't even close. He had 2 70-point outings in there and then 2 triple-digit outings as well. But that Harry Himmelberg role is really hurting Isaac Cumming's performance. And as someone who is an owner of a silver Isaac Cumming in their back line, I'm not feeling too confident moving forward. I would prefer a Harry Himmelberg right now, even though he's a forward.
Yeah, he's a forward in our game.
He was a defender.
He's a unicorn.
you'd be playing him as a defender. And next year, that's potentially going to change. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm really excited about Harry Himmelberg. I'm not so excited about Isaac Cumming. I have some serious concerns.
I wouldn't even stroke for Cumming at the moment. It's not looking good.
No, not at all. Not at all. But let's get into our next part here where we reflect on the week that just came and we think what we did right and what we did wrong. So, we've got to keep ourselves accountable in our fantasy leagues. We sit here and talk a lot of facts at times, but we also have some dud selections. So, Kerm, why don't you get into what you got right and wrong this week?
Yeah, so I took a little bit of punt in the forward line this week, and we spoke briefly about how desolate the forward landscape is as a positional group this season. And I sort of looked at my squad and I saw I had a platinum Sam Berry, and he's been performing under the radar very, very well. He's a tackling machine. Yes. He is an absolute bull when he's playing in the guts. And there was no Matt Crouch, so he had free reign inside. He had 24 disposals, 14 tackles, and had 2 goals to go with it for 141. So I will take that every single day of the week from Sam Berry. I was super glad with that pick. But
can I just add on that? Does he ever get like an uncontested possession?
No, I don't
Every
think so.
possession he has is contested.
Yeah.
It's hard fought. He's scrapping. He's brushing blokes off. Like, he must get the hardest footy in the league right now because he just seems to have 3 people hanging on him.
I don't know how he gets back up week to week. It's crazy how he can play the way he does and just play his best season so far. I didn't think we'd be talking about Sam Berry in round 19. You'd think it'd be one of the Brisbane boys, but here we are.
Oh, yeah.
But I do this weird thing going into lockout on a Friday afternoon where I just panic and I make dumb decisions. I took Sean Darcy out of the ruck position for Rowan Marshall, and then 10 minutes before lockout, I took Rowan Marshall out and put in a diamond Toby Nankervis, who was playing that same night, and he had an absolute rotter. He was absolutely disgusting. He had 10 disposals, had the Darcy Cameron syndrome. Ivan Soldo was back in the side, which in hindsight, I should not have even touched Toby Nankervis as he only had 10 hit-outs and played that deep forward role that we don't like for our ruckman. And he only scored 47 GDS fantasy points. So I really did miss on that one, and I'm afraid it might have cost me the number 1 ranking in the week. I don't like to speculate on that, but
don't get too much into it because we're going to get into our team performance in a second, and you can explain what happened and how close you really were. But let me get into what I got right and wrong. And what I got right is putting my Zach Merritt into my lineup. You know why? Because he is that guy right now. I went all in attempting to get my platinum Zach Merritt into the squad, and it's paid huge dividends over the weekend. I love having him as a part of my team. It's only been 1 week, but mate, it's a pretty bloody good week. And I'm looking forward to many more performances like this for Merritt in the near future. But what did I get wrong? I made a silly decision like you. I'm playing Connor Idle, who I didn't even know wasn't going to play this week. And no Kerm Weekly News in our preview show had me rattled and unprepared for the ins and outs of the round of 19. It was a silly mistake. I'm hunting a good finish, not only for the weekly, but the seasonal competitions. And this one hurts a lot. But it's all on me, as I need to be a better coach moving forward and need to be on top of who is actually playing. I can't believe I did that. I just played someone who wasn't even going to be on the field. Anyone else would have been better in that role because at least they would have had something. So yeah,
I'm only a message
that's
away.
one that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate though. It is what it is, and we move on to next week, hey? But let's get into the team performance review. And I'm just going to give it and throw it straight to you because you were just talking about then how you went. You were so close, but get into it. How close were you?
Very close, and I can't help but feel a little bit sorry for myself, I can't lie. So I've dropped by about 120 points on the round 19 ladder. But I had some, as I said, the Toby Nankervis decision cost me a lot of points. I should have just kept Rowan Marshall in. Tom Campbell and the health issues for Rowan Marshall throughout the week scared me, I'm not going to lie. But I should have just blocked it all out and played Rowan Marshall. And the other one was Mason Redmond, who got injured just before halftime. He was on track for a good game, but missed the entire second half. So with those two decisions and the injury to Mason Redmond not happening, I could be first again. But I finished on 2,549 points. I finished second on the round, and I'm still second in seasonal ranking. So I'll take that top 3 right now and look to push for that number 1 spot again.
Mate, I'll tell you what, if that's a bad round for you, then my goodness, Callum must be sitting at home thinking, what is this guy doing? He's so upset. Callum actually had a good week this week, and I'm going to get into his team performance right now. So he finished 10th for the seasonal, for the weekly round, and he's currently 10th in the seasonal ranks as well. He finished with 2,191 fantasy points. You can see the team right in front of you right there. Here's another culprit of Isaac coming, like myself, so he definitely won't be happy with that. He might be looking at that moving forward to see if he can even replace him. But yeah, you can see the team there. It's quite good. He has some great depth all around. But yeah, watch out. I reckon he's going to make some moves in this next coming preview show.
Too.
And he's going to rattle up the team quite a bit because he's been hinting it to me for a while. And I'm super excited to see what he's going to do. But let's get into my team performance review. The bloody Zeus Cannons. We finished 4th on the round with 1,930 points. Of course, I'm in the capped competition, unlike the two others who are in the open comp. So my rules are a little bit different. You can see there down the bottom, I am 12 mil out of 12 million on the salary on the dot, which means I can't make any upgrades in a position. I need to be downgrading to then put players in. So it is quite tough, but I finished 4th on the week. I'm 3rd in the seasonal rank. I'm feeling good, man. Yeah. You know, I made a couple silly mistakes with that Connor Ardun start. But I'm really feeling good about my team, the depth of my team, and the performance of a lot of the players. And I'm really excited to see what we can do towards the tail end of the season because I'm optimistic that I can make my team even better than what it is now.
That midfield is...
I've been playing around a lot, trying to work out whether depth of the gradings is more important or having some higher rated cards and then some lower rated ones in there. So I'm just going to keep playing around, trying to find that magical formula until hopefully I'm on the top.
There you
so
go.
Yeah, I can't wait for that, mate.
I love it. 3rd on the season. You can't be too bad with that.
No one's complaining here, mate. The Zeus Cannons are mighty happy about that for sure. But Kerm, that's going to wrap us up there for another episode of the Footy Game Day Squad show. This is the review of round 19. And if you have made it this far, guys, please do us a favor. Leave a like on the video. Even subscribe to the channel if you want. It's free. You can always change your mind later. And yeah, Kerm, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners to this week?
Just get game day ready for round 20.
Absolutely. I cannot wait for round 20. There's going to be some huge moves made in the preview show. Guys, get game day ready and we'll see you then.